When Alexander was young, his father promised to buy him a horse, so they went to this horse marketplace, and they saw this really, really fine horse, and Alexander liked him right away, but the problem was nobody could ride him. Alexander said, "Father, let me have him." "Oh, son, you'll get hurt. He's a dangerous horse. He's hurt. Everybody's ridden him." "No, Father, I know how to handle him." Alexander noticed the horse was afraid of his shadow, so he gently spoke the horse, turned the horse facing the sun, where the horse couldn't see his shadow, mounted the horse, and rode him toward the sunlight. When he came back, Philip said, "My son, Macedonia and Greece are not big enough for you. You deserve the whole world." Philip paid for the horse. Alexander rode it home, and Alexander was to ride that horse till the day the horse died. Right here somewhere, way over here somewhere in this part of the world, there's a town called Bucephala, named after Alexander's horse Bucephalus. That's where Alexander's horse died. Now Alexander would name the cities he built along the way Alexandria, the most famous being Alexandria, Egypt. There's another Alexandria here. He named several cities after himself that he built. Anyway, in the course of Philip conquering the Greeks, he placed Alexander in charge of cavalry. And there was the Theban outfit here and the Athenian outfit here. The Theban soldiers were very disciplined. Well, what happened was the Macedonians started to lose, and they started to pull back. When they pulled back, the more disciplined Thebans stayed put. The less disciplined democratic Athenians began to break ranks and move. Alexander said, "Uh-oh, they've broken ranks. Now it's my chance to move in." So he moved in, hit them at the place where the ranks were broken, and destroyed both the Theban and Athenian armies. Anyway, Philip was preparing to invade Persia when, in a drunken brawl, he was knifed to death. The man who knifed him took off running, but he was caught. Several people in the group were faster than he was. He was caught, and he was cut down with a knife himself. From that day to this, people have wondered, was Alexander himself involved in the plot? Folk, it cannot be proven. Alexander and his father had their quarrels. Whatever the case, Philip was killed, and the young Alexander at 20 years old he took the throne. He had his half-brother killed, and his half-brother's mother also killed. He took the throne. The Greeks said, he's inexperienced, he's young, we can now get our independence. So they revolted. Alexander the Great took an army to the city of Thebes and destroyed every man in Thebes, burnt the city. He spared a few of the artisans or philosophers, but destroyed everything else, burnt the city to the ground, and guaranteed the city would never be rebuilt. The other Greek city-states said, "All right, your boss." They lined up. And Alexander, from that point on, never had to worry about the Greeks. Alexander had to put down a few revolts up here in the northern part of his kingdom. Macedonia is located right here. Then he prepared for his expedition to conquer the Persian Empire. It has been said, if you visit Macedonia today, every Macedonian is an expert on Alexander the Great. Everybody there can tell you all about him. He's the most famous Macedonian who ever lived. Be that as it may, something I want to say, it's getting toward closing time, I know, but a few things I want to say about Alexander. He always won his battles. Every battle he engaged in, he went through life, and that's something Hitler cannot say, it's something Napoleon can't say. But unlike the other great military leaders, he was always the first man to engage the enemy. He marched into battle, not off on the side like the other generals. His generals, part of his army was behind him. He was by himself in the front, and he would be the first person to clash with the enemy. Then after he clashed, his soldier would come behind him, and they would come next. But he was right in the middle, in the front of the battle, and he never was hurt, never was wounded, until he got to India. That's a story I'll probably wind up getting to next time, but in India, they managed to hurt him, and probably hurt him fairly badly. Anyway, once he had the Greeks in line and was secure at home, he crossed the Hellespont right here, the narrow place between Europe and Asia Minor, and he engaged the Persian king Darius III. Now, I had a Persian man in my class, you might call him Iranian, a few years ago, who said that Darius III really was the second best military leader of all time. He just had the misfortune of being the best military leader of all time. Anyway, Darius apparently was a great military leader, but he was no match for Alexander. He lost his initial battle to Alexander and was forced back. He fought again, lost again. He fought a few times more and lost, but he was always on the run. Now, one of the battles that they fought was at a place called Megiddo, or Armageddon. I was there one time. The writer of the book of Revelation said the last battle of the world will be fought here. If you know anything about the battle, well, actually I didn't draw it. The plain of Armageddon is actually shaped somewhat like this, which means that you get an army fighting here. There's no room for flanking movers. And also the officers at the top can see everything. In fact, actually, every soldier can see just about everything that's going on throughout the battle. But Alexander arranged to where he put himself on this side, and he put the Persians on this side. That way, if the Persians retreated, then you're retreating toward Macedonia. If Alexander had to retreat, he'd have to retreat deeper in the Persian Empire. And the army said with no flank, he was just head-to-head clashing, and Alexander and his men won. Again, there have been many a battle fought at Megiddo. Napoleon once said to have looked at the site and said, hey, wouldn't this be a dandy place to have a fight? Again, where the fighting would just be bang to bang, head to head, no maneuvers, no flanking, and you'd fight until one side practically annihilated the other. Alexander marched on to the city of Tyre, and the city of Tyre did something that hasn't been done, was not to be done again for another 2,300 years. He sent some ambassadors to try to negotiate with the people of Tyre, and the Tyre government killed his ambassadors. Now, I say it wasn't happening again. In my own lifetime, I've watched as the ambassador to Afghanistan was killed. We had 52 hostages taken in Iran in 1979. Again, ambassadors are supposed to have diplomatic immunity. Even Adolf Hitler and Mussolini and Stalin respected that law. It's like an international law. You don't harm another nation's ambassadors. But of course, we've seen in the last couple of years our ambassador get killed in Lebanon. In Libya. Ambassador get killed in Libya, and our ambassadors no longer feel safe. But anyway, the ambassadors Alexander Sent were killed. So Alexander built a causeway out to the city of Tyre. The causeway still stands. Tyre was an island out away from the ocean. He built a long causeway, and again, folks, we can't explain how he could do it with the men he had. And once he had gotten the causeway built, he sent some battering rams against the city of Tyre, destroyed Tyre, set it on fire, and built it and set it to where the city of Tyre has never been rebuilt. All right, I've got to close here. We'll take up next time with Alexander finishing off Persia. And we'll finish Greece and start Rome next class. Have a good weekend. I'll see you Monday.
How do we keep up with all these Steve, Alexander the Great did, that's why there just needs to be like specific shit that we do.